Can we just say that it's great that we have made it? We have made it past that ridiculous period where Rolex watches were seen as unobtainable. Authorized dealers couldn't get the watches in fast enough. They were being bought like there was no tomorrow. And of course, the grey market, they were profiting off this demand heavily. So much has changed in the last 12 to 18 months. And while we have noticed continual inflation and the prices of Rolex models have definitely gone up year on year, some brands have done better than others. And when it comes to Rolex, well, it's a name that will never lose its reputation. And I think for the first time in, 7 years, we can actually get a Rolex watch for equal to or less than retail prices. It's a very refreshing thing, and it's hilarious to say out loud. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Of course, the ones that we really want, they're still held under lock and key. You won't find many all stainless steel watches available to you. But as we have learnt in life, as well as watches, there is always another way. Maybe you can't get the Submariner or the GMT that you want, but there are other options. And dare say some options that I think are even better. Now, the watches I've chosen for this video, I think we all appreciate one way or another. Some of them are under the radar, some of them are less appreciated than others. And it's occurred to me that all the watches I've cherry-picked for this video, I have had each of them in my hand at one stage of my life or another. And I think every single one of them is worth your time. So the current state of the Rolex landscape, if you walk into an authorized dealer, you can now express your interest in a watch, be put on a list, and your chances of receiving it are a lot higher than they were a few years back. There are also some rare situations with pieces that you can walk in, you can buy, and walk out on the same day. And of course, there are the most expensive ones: solid gold, platinum, Two Tone, which we will discuss later in the video. So I think it's fair to say before getting into the pieces is that these are not the most popular watches by any means, but I think you know that already. But grey market or second hand, you can get these pieces for equal to or under retail prices. And that's where it gets exciting, because this could in a way inform where we're seeing the watch trend moving, but it also means that as enthusiasts we can find some great watches, truly great watches, that other people just aren't looking at. Let's start with the humble Datejust, and the models that we should be looking at if we want to get a retail or under retail price are watches without fluted bezels. It's still the case that precious metal on a Datejust demands quite a premium. And because of that, the smooth bezels, they are factored in as more entry-level pieces in the family. But saying that, there are exceptions, and of course we know there are many different combinations that these watches arrive in. Some with smooth bezels and Jubilee bracelets, some with flat-colored dials, others with brush dials. I'm saying there is a lot of opportunity here to pick and choose the models that you like. Some examples with Roman numerals or the Wimbledon dial are still difficult to get, but models with stick batons, smooth bezels, it's a great place to start, and in there you can have fun finding your own configuration. Now, two-tone professional sports watches, they have seen quite a dip in demand and interest over the last couple of months. Whether you're looking at Submariners, GMTs, or even Daytonas, you can be very lucky to find some great options. And one of the models I've highlighted in this video is the two-tone blue dial Submariner. This is by all means a cult classic. It's a very popular watch. The colorway and the contrasting metal, it is hard to beat. Factoring in that it now has a lighter, brilliant blue sunbrush dial. There are so many things about this watch to enjoy, and you can in fact buy them for under retail if you look hard enough. I guess the limiting factor with these two-tone pieces is they are very loud on the wrist. They do say quite a lot. And I'd also say stylistically, they're for a very specific age bracket. I would say when you're in your late 20s, early 30s and onwards. But it is Rolex's flagship, it is the Submariner, and it's a statement piece. And it's ironic to think that compared to their full steel counterparts, you're paying maybe $1,000 over that price, and you're getting precious metal included in the watch. With a far more characterful dial, I think it's a win-win all the way. Now next up, and this is quite a surprise, that the GMT's similar situation. Whether you're looking at a watch like the Root Beer, the CHNR, a brilliant watch in rose gold, or you're looking at the most recent two-tone black and grey, you can find these watches equal to or less than retail on the grey market. And I'll let you in on a secret, and I'm giving away everything here, but this is my favorite two-tone watch currently available. It has a very 1980s look, the classic Jubilee integration. Not a lot of gold to stand out, but a colorway that's also extremely versatile. If I had all of the options open to me, I could see myself wearing this watch no problem. And now that I've said all of this, odds are I'll never be able to get one. You know, for me it's that perfect intersection of grace and elegance, but it's also that functionality. Now, keeping in line with these professional watches, the Sea Dweller, it's seen quite a descent. Particularly the Sea Dweller 43, it's the model that I've highlighted for this video. I remember having this watch in hand many years ago and saying, this is just brilliant. The size, the presence on the wrist, the matte dial, the red line of text, the fully graduated bezel. This watch had so much substance, and I think that's the primary reason why people aren't looking at them, is because 43mm, it's not a popular choice. But then a lot of that space is taken up thanks to the bezel, and the dial aperture, it's pretty small. There is so much to like about this watch. It screams professionalism, from the helium escape valve to the adjustable clasp. And the fact that it's in all steel, and I'm sure the two-tone variant of this watch just as accessible. Just keep in mind that the reason why people aren't going after this watch is because of its size, and for that reason alone, tons of potential to pick up one for a good price. What about the Yacht-Master, the poor Yacht-Master? The dressy Submariner, it's a far more glitzed up and glamorized model. I've chosen the rhodium dial with the light blue accents because this is the one I've had in hand and on wrist for quite a period of time. And it's such a great watch. All steel, 40mm in diameter, including the fact that the bezel insert, it's a precious metal. I do find it ironic that the Rolex watches out there that seem to have a lot more artisanal care and effort put into them, with polished lugs, with polished center links, in some cases with more exciting dials, and in this case with a fancy bezel insert. These are the ones that people don't look at and they don't really care about. As we know, there are other options of Yacht-Masters out there. The two-tone chocolate dial with rose gold. As I'm sure you're aware, in all of these categories there are models that are in more demand than others, like the 42mm solid gold on a rubber strap, difficult to get. The titanium model, forget about it. But these steel models, you can get them for under retail, and I think worth every penny, considering what you are getting as a package. And now we move to the big three. Three models that are questionably not as appreciated as they should be. Start with the Air King. This model line has had the hardest life in Rolex's catalogue. It's one that struggles to find and establish its own identity. It seems to change with every season. The newest rendition of this piece has integrated crown guards, which is kind of strange, a all-professional case, brushed metal throughout, and a dial that is both interesting and also perplexing. And did you know that next to the Yacht-Master, it's one of the only Rolex watches to have these great colors integrated into the seconds hand and onto the dial? Why aren't people going after this watch? Well, it's pretty odd looking, and it doesn't really look like a Rolex. It seems as though they crammed everything into this dial and just left it like that. But if we're talking bang per buck for a professional watch, this is number one. You're getting so much in one package. And if we were to look at the checklist, it does have all of the cliche hallmarks to make it a professional watch. From the crown guards, to the more professional squared off case, to the fully brushed finish. But then visually, it does look quite different. I think one of the main reasons why people aren't chasing this watch is its size and dimension on the wrist. It has a 40mm diameter with something like a 50mm lug span. It also lacks lume in places, and like we've said countless times, it looks pretty odd. But like its original inspiration, it is a pilot watch, and I think it does communicate that in its own way. And to the models that we've all been waiting for, the Explorer lineup, which I do not understand. Why is it that the 36mm Explorer is selling for less than or under retail? I would say a more elegant execution of the Air King, and has an amazing history to back it. I am incredibly biased about this watch, but for me it's what perfectly epitomizes what the Oyster Perpetual is in every way. Hans Wilsdorf's original vision, I think, is personified in this watch. From its proportions, its wearability on the wrist, the sense of adventure that it imbues. I will never grow tired of this watch. In fact, if I could, I would probably own another one, the two-tone variant. And I think it is criminal that this piece is selling for equal to or less than retail prices secondhand. There are too many good things to say about it, so I'll stop. It's a classic. It's worth looking at. And finally, the watch to bring it all home, the Explorer 2. Not only the most recent model line, but the earlier generations, the 5-digit references, they have been seeing a big dip on the secondhand market. For the life of me, I can't understand why the Explorer 2 is not receiving the praise that it deserves. And when we look to the modern lineup, I guess the main detractor, very much like the Sea Dweller, is it's a 42mm watch. And because it's not the conventional 41 or 40 or 39, it's a piece that people just aren't looking at as much. But in every way, it has all of the bells and whistles that defines a professional Rolex, as well as the fact that it has an integrated GMT movement inside of it. And if I'm not mistaken, the polar dial can be found for equal to or less than retail, but the black dial can be found for quite a significant price underneath that. This is the reason why the Explorer 2 is on the cover photo of this video, because I think this is the one that embodies the situation that we're currently in. And I think it's fair to say that when we look at this list, after the huge spike and inflation and demand that all Rolex watches seem to have, before then, none of these watches were seen as popular examples. And it's now returning back to that equilibrium where these ones are in the lower tier of demand and interest. So what is the take home? Spend less time looking at the most highly sought after pieces that everyone wants. Chase after the ones that in one way or another folk aren't looking at instead. And for the first time in a long time, we can get these watches in hand. We can put scratches on them. We can enjoy them for what they are. We can treat them the way they are supposed to be treated. From the simple Datejusts to two-tone Submariners, GMTs, even Daytoners, to the more professional-oriented watches like the Sea Dweller, like the Explorers or the Air King. There's plenty of fun to be had out there, and I hope I've been able to highlight at least one or two pieces that maybe you didn't realize you could get for less than or equal to retail. So hypothetically, if you had a choice of watch on this list or one that I maybe didn't mention, which would it be? And thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Happy hunting.